So, yes, thank you for joining us. Before we begin, we would like to thank the Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies here at the University of California, Los Angeles, the Center for Early Global Studies, also the Getty Museum and Getty Research Institute. They had generously offered their time and expertise yesterday to give us a tour and have us interact with some beautiful bestiary manuscripts in particular. And additionally, thank you to the California Map Society, who also supported our efforts to bring you here today and share our ideas.
In particular, I want to say with regard to the California Map Society, that members from the Map Society are here, and in particular, a board member, Fred, who's right here, would be delighted to talk with everyone here, about the benefits of joining the California Map Society. And there are sample copies of Khalifa, the California Map Society journal, available on the back table there. So I encourage you to have a look at them. They're really very beautifully produced.
Just before we get started with our first panel in a few minutes at 11 o'clock, we have some chats. Let me just make sure that. Oh, that's you. Okay. Hello. I want to start with a little bit about the history of our project here and why we are here today. We were counting the years, and it took a while to figure out that the first idea came back in for this conference came back in 2018 when I had Chet out to my institution, Washington and Lee, to co-teach a part of a lesson with me and to give a talk to our own Center for Medieval Renaissance Studies. And we had an idea when I was driving back to the airport, that we should put together conversation about literature and cartography. And then COVID happened, and then here we are 5 years later. And so it's we can't believe the day is here finally, and we're really excited. The idea we had in driving to the airport really was an observation that there's a lot of bibliography that's come out in the recent years about the question of literature and cartography, or literature and geography, or spatial studies. We really wanted to bring together this project and this our group of speakers today to really target something that we felt needed elaborated on, which namely was bringing together a more global perspective and a historical perspective, linking the Middle Ages to a late early modern. And so here we are, and that's the rationale behind what we're doing here today.
Yeah, well, I'll add that, Steve, it's been a pleasure organizing this with you.
Yes,
it's been a lot of fun.
Too, yeah. Nice Skype meetings.
Yeah. Where is this? So we'll just begin with there we go. A few sort of appetizers, shall we say, a few thought-provoking remarks. The first is a quote from Fra Paulino Veneto from 1321, in which he talks about having the importance of having text on maps. So he says, what is needed is a twofold map with both pictures and text. Nor will you think one sufficient without the other. For a picture without text indicates provinces or kingdoms unclearly, and text without the aid of pictures does not show the boundaries of the provinces in all of their parts, so that they can be perceived almost at a glance. So a little bit about the importance of having text on maps. And then one thing that maps can do is inspire text. And I'm going to give a very clear example of that, which is later chronologically than the focus of our conference, but it's for the earlier cartographers, we often don't have the full records of their thoughts that we wish for. So hopefully this example will shed some light on the possibilities for earlier maps having inspired text as well. So this is the map of Treasure Island that Robert Louis Stevenson and his stepson Lloyd Osborne created. And there's actually some controversy in the scholarship about just how much credit should be assigned to Lloyd Osborne. It seems that Stevenson sort of took the credit for himself when Lloyd Osborne actually contributed quite a bit to the original map. But anyway, this map was the seed and inspiration of the text of Treasure Island in two different ways. So it wasn't that Stevenson wrote the book and then created the map to illustrate it. It was the other way around. First, as Stevenson later wrote, as I pored upon my map of Treasure Island, the future characters of the book began to appear there visibly among the imaginary woods, and their brown faces and bright weapons peeped out upon me from unexpected quarters as they passed to and fro, fighting and hunting treasure on these few square inches of a flat projection. The next thing I knew, I had some papers before me and was writing out a list of chapters. So the map really was the seed and origin of the story. And within the story, within the novel, it is Jim Hawkins' finding of the treasure map at the bottom of Billy Bones' sea chest that sends Jim, Squire Trelawney, and Dr. Livesey on their adventure. So the map both generates the narrative and within the novel sets the plot in motion. So some of the ways that maps and literature can interact: a map can illustrate a text, a map can inspire a text, as we just saw, a map can cite a text can explain a map, it can inspire a map, text can cite a map, of course. But I think the real interest, and I hope this becomes clear as we move forward, is how the details of how these details of these connections play out. It's not just the fact that a map can inspire a text, but how does that process happen? That's really interesting.